Everyone, this video is the first in our data and statistics unit. Remember, everything that I write down in this video should be written down in your note sheets. This first video, we're going to work on learning target 1, which is describing the patterns in the scatter plot using key vocabulary. Okay, so we're just going to go over some vocabulary that you might have seen before or you might not have. The first term is correlation. If you want to pause the video, the definition of correlation is the relationship between two variables. And we're going to keep it as simple as that. Positive correlation, it's kind of like positive slope. It's a correlation when each variable tends to increase or decrease as the other does the same. So it would be like if we have an x and y axis, and as my x increases, my y also increases. Okay? Negative correlation is when one variable increases and the other decreases. So this would be an x and y axis where as my x's are getting bigger, my y's are getting smaller. Or you can look at it as my y's are getting bigger, my x's are getting smaller. So they do the opposite. Positive correlation, they go together. Negative correlation, they do the opposite. A strong correlation is when the scatter plot is closely related to a line. So it looks like there could be a line in the dots. A weak correlation is when the points on a scatter plot are loosely related to a line. And then no correlation is when there is no pattern, or I should say linear pattern, in the scatter plot. And that would look kind of scattered. Points are everywhere. Okay? So let's take a closer look at those. We're going to do a couple more vocab words first. So, with each scatter plot, we're going to learn to make these general statements. So, the way you'll do this is you'll talk about as the x variable increases or decreases, then the y variable. And so let's say you were talking about as we sell more product, we make more money. Okay? So that would be a positive. As the product sales go up, so does profit. Or as we drive more miles, the gas in our tank goes down. So that would be opposite. Okay? Clusters are high concentrations of data. And this has to be really obvious. It has to be very different from the rest of the data. Okay, so you might want to add that in there. Needs to be very obvious. Or different. Okay, kind of like outliers. Outliers are one or two data points that don't fit the trend. Of the data. And so they could be off to the side, but if they still fit the trend, then they're not outliers. So like if I have a bunch of data points down here that are going in a positive direction, and then one up here, it still fits the trend, so it's not really an outlier. Okay? If it were over here, then it would be an outlier. And the range is the difference between the maximum, or the biggest number, and the minimum. The smallest number. So let's take a closer look at those correlations. A strong positive correlation is going to be if I have an x and y axis, and why don't I make my x and y axes here. So a strong positive correlation is one where our data points are both going up and they are closely related to a line. Okay? A weak positive correlation would be when they're going up, you can tell that as one rises, the other rises, but they're more loosely connected to a line. So a line could still go through there, but it wouldn't touch as many points. Okay? A strong negative correlation is just the opposite. When the points are going down, as one increases, the other decreases, and they're close to a line. And a weak negative correlation is just the opposite of a weak positive, where they're going down, you can tell that's the trend, but they're not closely related to a line. Okay? And then if you want to somewhere in your paper add that no correlation, and maybe we can go back and we'll put this with no correlation. That's just where there's no pattern. So there's no up or down. We can't tell either. All right, so that's an introduction to LT1.